All right, what's up, my mathletes? This is Miss Muscarella coming at you. And in this video, we're going to take a look at solving trig equations by factoring. So first, let's go ahead and do a quick review of factoring. So let me get you to pause the video, take about 10 minutes, and I want you to do part A, part B, that quick review, and then also draw your unit circle. So pause the video, 10 minutes, and then come on back. All right, how'd we do with that? Hopefully your work looks identical to this because you want to keep it nice, neat, and organized. Now again, here's what I would be looking for in a quiz. One is that you get the equation set equal to 0 correctly. Two is that you can get it factored correctly. Now in part A, that one has the same factor for the binomial or the trinomial that we factor, so you want to make sure that you take that and set it equal to 0. Now some people will skip this step here, and I'm going to go ahead and put a red box around it. Some people will skip that step because they can do that in their head, but I'd like you to go ahead and write it out for now, and then because that's going to lead to some patterns with some other things later on. And of course we've got our final answer there. So make sure we get our factoring correct, get the equation set equal to 0, and that we solve the factors correctly. Now on the unit circle, hopefully by now you're getting that down, and that's you're able to do that lickety split, so that should be getting a little bit easier as we go along. Now factoring, this is how we're going to work with factoring when it comes to the unit circle. We're going to do the same thing, get an equation set equal to 0, and then factor it and solve it. But instead of it just being x, we'll be working with sine or cosine or tangent or some other value there. Now I guess we got the bells going. So time for the next class. All right, so here we go. We're going to take a look at these four problems here. Now the very first one, we're going to take a look at the sine of 2 squared. So what you always want to kind of analyze is several different things. One, this right here, that's your constant term because it's just a number. This term right here, so this is a constant. This one is called your linear term because it's not raised to a power. So it's just something to the first power, and that's called a linear term. And then anything that's to the second degree, like here we have 2 sine squared, so that's going to be our quadratic term. So when we analyze this, we want to make sure that whatever way we move things around, we want to get the quadratic term to be positive. So when we do that, it's already positive on that side. So I'm going to leave 2 sine squared theta where it is. And then that same thing is on the same side is plus 3 sine of theta. So both of those stay the same. Now that constant, that -1, we're going to move that to the other side. And so that is going to give us the opposite of -1 is +1. So +1 equals 0. So we're going to move everything around and I like to keep all the terms on the left. So if you would have flipped that around and put 0 on the right, that's okay too. Now from here, this is just going to be a very straightforward factoring problem. When we take a look at 2 sine squared, the only way to factor 2 sine squared is just going to be 2 sine of theta and sine of theta. So that's going to be breaking down that first one. Now since both of my terms here are positive, my linear term and my constant term, since both of those are positive, that means the only option that I have is that both of these are going to be positive. And since the factors of 1 are only 1, I don't have to do too much there. That's pretty straightforward stuff. So that's how we're going to start that out. We're going to get that factor. Then, just like we did before, we're going to take each factor and we're going to set that equal to 0. So 2 sine of theta plus 1 equals 0. Now when we move the 1 over and divide by 2, so we're going to do 2 steps here. So we're going to get sine of theta is equal to, when you move the 1 over, you get -1, and then you divide by 2, you end up with sine of theta equals -1/2. So that's one of the very first things that we're going to do. And then we'll do the same thing with our other factor. We'll take sine of theta plus 1, set that equal to 0. So we get sine of theta equals -1. From there, now is where the unit circle comes in, because the sine has to do with the y coordinate. So now I got to look on the unit circle and figure out, all right, where are my y coordinates, those values? So let's bring this down here. All right, so there we go. So that way we can kind of see it. So we're going to do each one of these kind of separately. So our 2 sine theta plus 1, we end up with this value right here. So sine of theta being -1/2, that's my y coordinate. Your y coordinate is going to be negative below the x-axis. So that is going to be here at this value right here, 7 pi over 6 and 210. And also at 330 degrees, or 11 pi over 6. So our answers for this part, so theta would be equal to 210 degrees and 330 degrees. Those are my answers in degrees. And in radians, so theta would be the same thing as 7 pi's over 6 and 11 pi's over 6. So that takes care of the very, very first factor, 2 sine theta plus 1. Now that my other factor, sine of theta equals -1, so on this part, right, this factor right here, I end up with a value of sine theta being -1. Again, where's my y-coordinate -1? Down here at 270 degrees, or 3 pi over 2. So this one only has the answer, so theta would be equal to 270 degrees, or theta would be equal to 3 pi's over 2. All right, that's it. And that's all you got to do. So the main thing I want you to do is make sure you keep your work nice, neat, and organized. Now, if this were a quiz, again, you'd get 1 point for getting the equation set equal to 0, 1 point for getting your factors correct, and then each one of your answers would be worth a point in radians and a point in degrees. All right, so this is how you kind of look at that piece. And then sometimes it might just be, instead of, you know, getting all the points on that, you might just get 1 point for the answers being correct or not being correct. So your answer could just be worth 1 point instead of 2. All right, so that's how that'll be scored. All right, go ahead and come on back for example number 2, and I will see you guys shortly. Have a great day. Peace out.